Welcome back to the channel. My name is Steven. I'm a pharmacist and I own 52 units of real estate. So I've been doing a lot of self-reflecting lately and realized that I basically achieved financial independence. I've achieved fat fire essentially with a $6 million net worth. My real estate, assuming no major expenses that month, cash flows between ten to $12,000 a month, right? But as we all know, the cash flow is just being saved up for a CapEx expense that's going to happen eventually, right? Whether it's replacing a roof, a plumbing issue, maybe there's a pothole somewhere, new HVAC, whatever that looks like, and that could kind of ch- dive into your cash flow or take away from that cash flow, right? So it's 10 to 12K a month cash flow, quotation marks, but in reality, it's being saved for CapEx in the future, right? So I'm not trying to live off of it. But let's just assume that um, there's no major capex expense. I have a $6 million net worth, and basically I achieve financial freedom. So it's very interesting because I've been chasing financial freedom for the past, I think, all during COVID. Like honestly, when I got laid off from my pharmacist job during COVID, I have a whole video about that. Please check it out. But when I got laid off, it was like a slap in the face for me of reality that I was too dependent on my pharmacist income, which don't get me wrong, it's good. And for the most part, I'm a little lucky, but it's a pretty stable job, right? If you work at a larger institution that's nonprofit, typically it's very stable, right? So I'm just a little bit unfortunate, but things happen for a reason. So I think the fact that I got laid off, got slapped in the face, and got punched in the gut made me realize that I need to diversify my streams of income so that I'm not fully dependent on pharmacy, but I want to leverage the income I make from pharmacy to be able to help me fund those investments, right? So, when I got laid off, obviously I was very sour towards pharmacy. I kind of hated pharmacy for a little bit. Got over that now, and now I appreciate my job, as I've mentioned in more recent videos. But it's I built up. I bought when I got laid off. That's when I got into multifamily. I was self-educating myself about multifamily, listening to YouTube videos, listening to podcasts, joining a mentorship, and I learned the most, to be honest, by taking consistent action. Right, like I talked to a lot of property managers, I analyzed a lot of deals, I made a lot of offers, I talked to other real estate investors, I listened to a lot of podcasts. I'm always trying to improve myself, learn, and improve my mindset, right? And be consistent in that process. So, I deep dived into multifamily with the goal of achieving financial freedom, right? And I feel like I've achieved that now. Obviously, I own today $5 million of equity in real estate. So, yes, that's factoring in my debt, right? So, $5 million in real estate equity, and about $1 million in stocks for a $6 million net worth. I do cash flow about 10 to 12K a month, with my disclaimer. And through my W-2, I take home about $12,000 a month. So, all things being equal, my real estate income, which is 10 to 12K net, is about the same as my W-2, right? And so, if I didn't work anymore, I would cash flow between 10 to 12K, and let's just be realistic here, and minus $4,000 for reserve. So maybe realistically it might be 6 to 8K, right? And I will say 6 to 8K take home is still a regular pharmacist salary, right? Maybe not pharmacy manager, pharmacy director, but pharmacy regular pharmacist. So essentially, my passive income, if I factor in some capex reserve, is enough to replace a pharmacist's income. Plus, I have $1 million stock portfolio. Plus, I have $5 million in real estate equity. So $6 million net worth. So like to me, it's just like when I hit financial freedom, I didn't even realize I hit it. Right? I was just like, oh, like I'm still working, and a lot of people ask me why I'm still working, and for me, it's just like, well, you know, passive income from real estate is not the same as W two income, right? W two income, as you all know, it's guaranteed every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks I'm getting $5,000 or $2,000 or $3,000. But for real estate, like I said, 1 month it could be 12K if there's no major expense. If I have a major plumbing issue, now I maybe only take home half of that, 5K. If I have a really, really major issue, it can wipe out my whole cash flow for that whole month, right? So like it's not as stable. It's a little bit stressful, right? So as I've ironically gone in this path of financial freedom, I realized that the cash flow from real estate is more to sustain the real estate, right? But what helps you achieve true financial freedom isn't the cash flow. The cash flow helps you maintain the property. It's the equity that you've built up, right? So like for real estate, I made most of my money through equity versus cash flow, right? Like for the most part, as you all know, my single family home portfolio, it's cash flow negative for the most part, but equity wise is a lot, right? My apartments, I forced a lot of equity using value add strategies, and that's where I made most of my money, right? Like for example, my 26 unit, I doubled the value, so I forced about $800,000 of equity, and I cash flow about 10, let's just say $6,000, $5,000 a month for simplicity, times it by 12. Um, so that's like, what is that? That's 60,000 a year in cash flow. So okay, I mean $6,000 a year cash flow is a lot, right? But I made $800,000 in equity, right? So that's essentially like, what is that? Like 15 years of my cash flow, right? Assuming that it's the same cash flow a year. So that's what I learned is like, as I achieve financial freedom, I have a high paper net worth, so I'm asset rich, but in a weird way, I'm cash poor, right? So in order to be less cash poor, you're kind of forced to sell some of your properties that have high equity, right? So if I want to cash in, I have to sell my real estate. So it kind of busted my buy and hold strategy model, right? Like now I kind of view real estate as I'm having these big piggy banks, and eventually when I'm ready to mobilize those piggy banks, I'll crack them open and then make the moves I need to retire early, right? So, I talked about a lot in this channel, but like for example, if I wanted to retire, I don't think I'd feel comfortable living off the cash flow because it's variable. What I want is I'd want to sell a property, take that equity. So let's just say I sold all my single family homes, which is break even or cash flow negative. I sell that, and I think one property has about like, let's just say $700,000 of equity in it. If I were to sell that, and let's just say after taxes, I have whatever, $600,000, being generous, and I can take that $600,000 and pay off my current mortgage on this property, or a good chunk of the mortgage on this property. And if I paid it off, now I'm not obligated to this like $5,500 a month mortgage. I'm just stuck with $2,000 a month, which is for the property tax, the HOA, and the insurance, right? Keep in mind I have a high HOA of like $600, right? But you still have property tax and you still have insurance. So basically that'd be the first move I'd make. I'd basically sell a single family home, use that to pay off my primary residence so that I lower my living expense and that I can afford, $2,000-$3,000 a month to live. That's average cost of rent in Southern California. I think a one bedroom average is about 2,500, and for a nicer one. And if you want like a 3 bedroom townhouse to rent out, it's at least 3,500. So if I can lower my expense to $2,000-$3,000, that's pretty comfortable, right? It's no different than paying rent, and I threw a large sum of money. Another thing that I would do if I wanted to retire early is, yes, I would live off that cash flow, but I would need to build up another stream of income, right? So like, what does that look like? Is it real estate coaching and mentorship, which I'm doing? Is it becoming a real estate broker, which I plan on doing? I would want another source of income so that I could, still work. Like, when people think financial freedom and retire early, it's not like I'm not going to work. I just can choose when I can work, who I work with, what I work on, right? I can go on a spontaneous vacation. Like, what does that look like, right? Like for me, I don't mind the work. I just like the freedom, the flexibility to not have to show up to a 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, right? Like if I want the option to like, hey, for this month I want to work, this month I want to travel to Japan, right? So like, what does that look like, and what does that entail? So from there as well, like I would basically make those moves, right? So I would want, obviously I would lower my expense by paying up my property. I would have the cash flow from real estate, but no, realistically that's variable. So I would need another source of income that is, um, a way to supplement that, right? To make it that pharmacist salary. Or like, well, a lot of pharmacists do, or a lot of healthcare workers do, is I can still work just part time, right? Like there's a lot of gigs, nurses, doctors, pharmacists. They just work 1 to 2 days a week, per diem, whenever they want to, whenever it fits their schedule, or they just can like not work, and you can pick up like contract jobs, like there's travel nurses, travel pharmacists, or you can pick up a 3 to 6 month assignment, work there, and then take the other 6 months off, right? So really, what I realize is that financial independence, retire early, it just gives me options, right? Like I have the option to, when I'm ready, sell a house, pay off my primary residence, lower my expense, and still be able to work like part time if I want to. Like if maybe real estate doesn't do well that month, I can pick up a couple shifts in pharmacy, right? So it's really those options. So kind of how I envision me stepping into retirement, and like in my 40s maybe, is like I said, as it stands right now, if I'm working my pharmacist job, I'm not going to sell anything. Doesn't make sense. But if I'm ready to scale back, most likely what's going to happen is my fiance, future wife, is probably gonna go part time first once we have a kid, right? And then at that point, she does want to work like 1 to 2 days a week still. That may change once we have kids, right? But that's her mindset right now. And at that point, it's just like, okay, do I want to continue working full time, or do I want to kind of scale back, right? So if I'm working full time, I'm not gonna sell anything. But if I want to scale back to maybe part time, and maybe work 1 or 2 days a week, then at that point, our income's gonna cut in half, right? So keep in mind, together as two pharmacists, we make about 400,000. If we get cut in half, then it's about 200,000, which is still a good living, right? But let's just say if we still want to maintain that $400,000 income, um, basically I could still, I would have to lower my expense, right? Because now I'm living off less money. So I would sell a house, pay off my primary, and that would lower my expense. So instead of paying like $700 a month, I'm paying now maybe $2,000 a month because my house is paid off, and it lowers my monthly expense by 5,000, and I'm making 5,000 less, or at least $10,000 less, right? So that offsets some pressure, right there. Um, right? So it can be stepwise, and at that point, maybe she would go down to full time, retire, and then I would still be part time. Then it go down to, um, full time retired. But as I take these steps down, I want to scale up my other side businesses, right? Like I want to scale up my coaching, my mentorship, my social media, my real estate brokerage, right? If I want to go down that route and try that route. Right now, it's shiny object syndrome for me, but it's something I want to consider, where like I don't need, because I know real estate, my aunt was telling me real estate brokers like and loan officers, you work 24/7 and you have no life, you're always on call. But like I feel like, well, maybe I just can sell 1 or 2 homes a year. And in California, you sell one home, you can make $30,000, right? $1 million home, 3% interest, that's 30K. You sell two, though, that's 60K. I mean, that's half a pharmacist's salary right there. Or you sell three, that's 90K. That's half a pharmacist's salary, right? So like you can just be really picky and choosy. Like you can help some friends and family, or not sell at all, right? So I would, um, kind of a huge rant here, but what I would do if I wanted to retire at a high level is, number one, lower my expenses. What's your base expense? It's your house, right? So I try to pay off my mortgage to reduce that big expense. Number two is, I would want to build up a side income where the work is more flexible and more suited to my lifestyle, right? Like, could I work whenever my hours, like my ideal working time would be like just maybe 8 to like 12, and after lunch don't work anymore, right? And to be able to have the flexibility to travel spontaneously if I have, let's say you see a good deal. But this is all going to change when I have kids, right? I know that. I'm keeping that in mind. But basically it would be, as I scale back from pharmacy, I want to make sure there's another source of income that's not real estate, that's going up to at least match it, right? Whether that's selling real estate as a real estate broker, coaching, mentorship, whatever that looks like, right? Or social media, right? If this blows up, so that can help supplant that. And I want to be able to have a large reserve fund for a rainy day, because I'm conservative, right? So that reserve fund can be invested in treasury bills, earning 5% on average. So I'd want a probably 12 month 12-month emergency fund. So my expense is $10,000 monthly. That's not the case because I own a lot of real estate, but let's just say then I would want 120K, right, of those reserve, right, to be super conservative, especially when you have a family, right? So I would do those moves if I wanted to scale back from pharmacy. And then what's nice about doing stepwise is that it's not a big shock, right? Like if you just suddenly like, oh, you go from like working to not working, it's a big drastic change, right? So, and it puts less pressure on my side hustle because I'm working, I'm building up the side hustle. So, anyway, sorry I went all over the place on this video, but just wanted to share my rant on the moves that I would make if I wanted to retire early to hopefully kind of give you a more realistic kind of blueprint on what you would do if you want to retire early, right? It's not just like overnight, it takes time and it's a process, right? It's a slow, gradual process. It's not like overnight. Don't get me wrong, unless you win the lottery, then it's overnight. But if it's realistic, it's going to take time, right? And it's a stepwise, right? You're going to step down to part time, then go to per diem and build up a side hustle. So right now I'm working more because I work my full time job. Plus, I am on top of that building a side hustle and managing my real estate, right? So I work 2 jobs right now. Anyways, let me know if you found any value from this. Sorry, I know I went a little over on this video. Just chatting for fun here. Let me know if you have any questions. If you're looking at buying your first multifamily deal with some guidance, check out my mentorship program. Please let me know if you have any questions. Hopefully this inspires you towards financial freedom. And I hope to see you in the next one. Thank you so much.